Hello guys, we all have heard that different LLMs perform differently depending on the task, depending on almost the time of the day. It's pretty random. But what if we could combine a few LLMs on the same task? I've made an experiment. I will show it to you in this video. This is partially inspired by a few comments on my last video about Gemini. So Berserker is saying that they use Gemini CLI for planning and then give that to other LLM to implement. And G. Cardinal says that the idea is to ask Codex or Claude to review the files. For example, the files could be generated by Gemini. So this is exactly what I tried. I took two LLMs, GPT-5 and Claude 4 Sonnet, and tried to generate the code with Sonnet and ask GPT-5 to review, and also vice versa, on the same project with the same prompt. And let me show you what happened. So the project and the prompt is pretty simple. I took it from Upwork, real job by the way. So Laravel 12 installation with Livewire starter kit, and they asked to generate the dashboard to display numbers and companies and clients CRUD. For simplicity, I just implemented the companies to get faster results with LLMs. And this was the prompt. I will show it to you in VS Code with GPT-5 and then in Claude Code. I have a fresh project, add this and that. On the dashboard, add this and that. In a human language. I also installed Laravel Boost under the hood, Laravel package to provide AI guidelines for Laravel and in this case Livewire, but I did it in both projects to compare apples to apples. So when I gave this prompt to Claude Code, to Claude 4 Sonnet, it implemented it pretty well in roughly 5 minutes. With changes for 21 files. Here's an example of a controller, and it actually worked. So this is the code generated by Sonnet on top of default starter kit. So the dashboard contains 3 widgets as asked. Then there's companies CRUD. You can search, which actually works except for UI thing. Probably those buttons should be here on the right. And you can clear, you can edit, so it all seems to work, except for one thing doesn't work. If I click on the name, there should be modal window with details, which doesn't work because there is some issue with Flux library powering the default Laravel starter kit with Livewire. But I intentionally didn't dig deeper into that and just asked GPT-5 to review the code of Sonnet 4. I've made a git commit, and VS Code with GPT-5 allows to reference the commit, but even if it doesn't, you can provide not commit attached but last commit, which worked in Claude Code, and then just asked it to review the code and provided the prompt in the beginning. And what were the recommendations? High priority issues to fix, route not wired to controller, and number 3, it's the same, missing resource routes for companies. But actually, they are not missing. If we look at the routes, it's all good. Route resource, there's no issue here. So the first and the third are false positives. Also, dashboard blade, the file ends with orphan, but I haven't found this orphan. This is a blade using layouts app blade component. It seems fine. The project is working. So all those 3 high priority issues were detected incorrectly. Then if we go down, there are functional UX fixes, and one of them is a pretty good point. If there's a search query, then pagination would break. So this is the first good recommendation, kind of good catch. Then it detected that in the modal fetch, the route could be better, but it didn't detect that the fetch doesn't even properly work. So it's kind of more like polishing recommendation. Same here, robust search handling may be more beneficial. Also may be more beneficial to add policies with adding permissions, but that was not the goal of the initial prompt. Also security thing may be JSON exposure on showing that modal, which doesn't even work again. And also performance with indexes maybe in the future, but this will be probably relevant only with bigger amount of data. Then validation and developer experience, additional validation, which is also pretty low priority, and code quality nits, which are mostly personal preference. tests to add or update also may be important, but basically summary of what's more important. This one is false positive, this one is false positive, this one is good, so 1 out of 5, and then 2 of those are basically extra functionality or personal preference. So was that review useful? Kind of. So it's not like you offload the review to LLM. I had to spend time to review the review and as a developer understand what is important and what is less important, also double check for false positive. So I'm not sure if it's that useful, at least in my case where GPT-5 reviewed the code of Sonnet. Now, what about vice versa? The same prompt in another project to GPT-5 to generate the code. It generated 14 files. I remind you, Claude Code generated 25 files. I haven't actually compared the code that much. I was just interested in the review part. Was it even useful? And in terms of the project, does it even work? Yes, it does. It has the dashboard with numbers. It has companies with search, but it doesn't have seeders. So what Claude Code did or Sonnet 4 did is generated seeders for data. In this case, I had to enter new company manually, and while doing that, I noticed that this doesn't even have labels. So there's a clear UI bug of like, what do I even fill in? But Fake Fill or Chrome extension can help with that. And I created a company, and I can edit the company again without any labels, but it kind of works. And also deleting the company works. And in this case, compared to Claude Code, that modal window actually works. Except for close button doesn't work, so I can click only here, and also the modal window provided the contact, which isn't even in the form at all as I understand, so it wasn't even generated. So implementation kind of works, is buggy, and let's see what Claude Code with Sonnet will tell us in its review. And this is the result of the review. It was the same prompt I asked it to review the last commit, and these are the issues. Critical issues. Queries executed directly in Blade template. This may be an issue technically, but in this case, I don't really mind. A few database queries here in the Blade. I can live with that. It's not critical in my opinion. Next, missing authorization. So it's the same thing as GPT-5 flagged for Claude Code implementation. Then broken modal implementation. Now this is pretty good. Uses hard-coded contact field, which I already noticed myself. Also, the model doesn't actually fetch the data, so we need to implement the proper AJAX loading. And if we take a look at the Blade, it uses Flux modal component to trigger from company name and show that in the modal. And as I mentioned, contact is hard-coded to not provided. So it's basically using the same data from the table, just showing it in the modal. Not exactly what I meant in my prompt, but also I can live with that. Though good thing that Claude Code caught that. Then inconsistent route design. What Claude means is route resource, but then on top company for that AJAX call, which is not even shown actually or not called. So I would flag that part even more instead of just route inconsistency. Missing contact info field, this is crucial, but what is more crucial is that labels are not even shown for the form. Search implementation is incomplete with pagination, but it was the same thing, the same error that Claude itself did. Then form request duplication, this is personal preference. Then missing factory seeder integration. Now this would be kind of a good quality of life improvement, which Claude provided and GPT-5 didn't. So this is not critical, but important in my opinion. Inconsistent string limits is a small detail, and test coverage gaps. By the way, in both cases, both LLMs generated and executed automated test, which is in the guidelines of Laravel Boost, so it worked brilliantly for that. I didn't have to test it manually. Well, I did test manually, but only after the crucial part was actually working. So it was not a one shot from LLM, it was one shot, then test, then second shot, third shot until it actually works in terms of automated tests. So that's great. But yeah, these were the recommendations by Claude reviewing GPT-5 code. So from those two experiments, what can I say? To be honest, to me personally, it took more energy to review the review of second LLM opinion. And even that opinion is totally not ideal, with false positives on both cases. Both of them identified a few important details that were missing, like search with pagination. But generally, I wanted to test the workflow. Would it make sense to have another LLM reviewing the code? And at this point, for this specific case, the answer is probably not. There are also general review tools, and you can ask, for example, Cursor to review your pull request on GitHub with GitHub Actions. There's also CodeRabbit and others. Of course, there should be manual review on top, but to ask LLM to automatically review other LLM code just like that, it didn't work for me. But maybe your experience is different. We can discuss in the comments below. Maybe some LLM is better at specifically reviewing the code. Let me know in the comments below. That's it for this time, and see you guys in other videos.